Okay friends, I do mention about TCP timers in the previous module. This module will talk about those timers, how the timers are going to be used in calculating and helping TCP in doing its job. We will also look at something called a delayed duplicate problem in TCP and how that problem is handled. We will also see the consequence of delayed duplicate problem, what if TCP cannot handle it, what are the consequences. And there is something called a solution to this delayed duplicate problem by a guy called Tomlinson, who provided a solution to it. And also provided a method called three-way handshake, which helps TCP to despite delayed duplicates, can make sure that connect with the recipient only when both of them wants and no other time. So, with that let us begin talking about TCP's timers. We have already seen the recipient, the retransmission timer. We say that we set that retransmission timer and we will calculate that value based on that the round trip time and the variance and calculate that timeout value. So, if it is beyond that timeout value, we retransmit and so on and so forth. So, we know that there is a retransmission timer. Okay. There is one more timer called connection establishment timer. So, connection establishment timer is whenever a connection is established, a connection request is sent, the timer starts. It is quite possible the receiver will not respond back in time. So, you do not wait indefinitely for that period, you just run a timer. When the timer goes off, you realize that your connection request has read to a dead end or deaf ears, and you may again retry or you may conclude, but you won't continue being in a loop. Delayed acknowledgement is something that we have seen earlier when we talked about protocols. So, whenever sender sends, receiver receives and would like to send back the acknowledgement, but would like to wait for the reverse traffic. Okay. So, it starts a timer. By the time if there is a reverse traffic, we will send the acknowledgement in a piggyback form. If there is no reverse traffic, we will generate a special acknowledgement form to make sure sender will not retransmit unnecessarily. So, that is delayed acknowledgement, which we have already seen. Next four are also quite critical type of timers, and we will be looking at each one of them one after the other now. The first one is called persist timer, next one is called keep alive, and then final wait 2 and time 8. Each one of them will be discussed now. First one is persist timer. Now, remember this thing is I have already talked about. It is quite possible that receiver has no place for the sender to send for a while. So, the receiver sends something called a zero window advertisement, clearly telling that sorry, I cannot accept your data for the time being, you will have to wait. Now, the sender is waiting. By the time there is a non-zero window advertisement. Now, receiver application has read something from the buffer. When it is read, there is a space available and the receiver sends a non-zero window advertisement. Unfortunately, that window advertisement is lost and you are in deadlock. Deadlock because sender believes that receiver has to send me a non-zero window advertisement. By the time I cannot send, receiver believes that I have already sent non-zero window advertisement. If it is not sending, what should I do? Now, that is a deadlock. To break the deadlock, an additional timer is run. When the timer goes off, sender reminds receiver, is there a zero window advertisement? Kind of. Okay. It is called probe. So, when there is a probe, the receiver will resend the latest window advertisement. If it is zero window, we will send, this is still 0, you will have to still wait. This is non-zero, this is non-zero, you can now send, kind of. Okay. So, this timer is also very important, persist timer, to make sure that receiver resend the zero window advertisement yet again, whatever, 0 or non-zero. The keep alive timer is also quite interesting. It is, now you probably have seen that receiver has sent some request to server and server responds back. Now, receiver starts doing something on its own, then forget to log off. Now, that happens when you, for example, you just open Yahoo Mail, look at the mails and then just close the application without logging out. You are not telling the server that I am closing, the process itself vanishes. In that case, the server will have to wait, and remember, in such a case, server keeps some memory for every user. Okay. So, whenever you double click on a mail, you immediately get that mail. How? Because server knows that this page is displayed there, and you may click on anything and server is ready to deliver those mails. So, they are there already and server is ready for you. So, he is expecting something from you, but if your process has died, server will unnecessarily wait. Not only it will wait, it will waste that memory also. Okay. So, those dead memory. So, again here there is a timer called keep alive timer. So, if find no activity for a while from the receiver, the server will probe again, are you alive? The receiver would say, yes, I am, that is fine. If it is not, we will try a few times. If it cannot, we will stop, drop the connection from its side, release that memory. So, non-responsive clients, for example here, okay, are you alive message is sent, because the client is terminated, there is nobody to respond. We will try a few times, there is no response, the final message is sent, then server will release that memory. Now, this is a very, very important thing, because for example, a case like Yahoo Mail, billions of users are there are millions of users communicating with Yahoo server every now and then. If there is every user leaves a memory like this, Yahoo server cannot function. So, if can release memory periodically, it becomes easier for it to handle other users. So, this is a very critical timer. In fact, there are many similar timers are available today. On the name of security, what they do is, if the connection remains idle for a while, won't do anything, will just break that connection. So, if you try doing it, it says that your connection was inactive for some time, you will have to re-log in, something like that. Okay. So, okay. Now, the connection close process acts like this. In fact, we will study this in a little more detail later, but it works like this. Sender sends something called disconnection request. The receiver responds back with disconnection acknowledgement. Now, sender and receiver do not close at the same point of time. The receiver might still have something to send, we will finish that thing up, and then we will send a disconnection request from its own side, and the disconnection acknowledgement is sent back by the sender. Now, what will happen? Sender sent this disconnection request, received the acknowledgement. Now, it should expect, it is expecting this connection received from receiver. So, what does it do? It will start timer. Okay. Now, here are two steps in finish process. The first step is over, the second step is waiting for the second steps to get over. So, it is final wait 2, and the timer is started, and if the disconnection request is received, no problem. If it is not received, it will understand that something is wrong with the receiver and terminate the connection from its own side. Okay. So, in this case, for example, disconnection ACK has come, but the receiver, no disconnection request from receiver arrives in time. Sender does not wait forever, closes after fin wait 2. Okay. Timer goes off and sender closes completely. Now, one more interesting timer. Whenever the connection gets over, it is quite possible some of the segments are still roaming around. Now, connection is over, but those segments are basically duplicates of the original. Whenever a segment is sent and it is roaming around in the network and not received at the receiver, sender may send one more which is received at the receiver will accept that. But then something which is roaming around pops up after a later period, and the connection is already closed. That particular segment may seriously hamper the performance of the TCP, because it may be accepted as a valid segment by somebody else. So, what is done is, and it is in internet, the standard is that once the connection is over, after 2 minutes you will get all this thing segments, okay, belongs to that. After that you will not get, because the lifetime is fixed. So, not more than 2 minutes you need to wait. So, what happens is, once you get that final acknowledgement, you will wait for 2 minutes, and if any segment arrives on that connection, you will have to just throw that to dustbin, that is all. But that timer, you need to run that thing for 2 minutes, so you need to have timer, and that timer is known as time wait timer. Okay. The delayed duplicate I mentioned about. Okay. Delayed duplicate, normal path from a sender call O, receiver to end. Okay. The first thing is that there may be more than 2 paths. Here is one path. See, this is the path. The other path is this. Okay. The original path was like this. This path is longer like this. What is the problem? Problem is that first packet, because of there is a congestion at this place, it is taking a longer path, and the second packet, when the second packet is sent, the path is clear and it reaches before this thing. So, packet 2 is actually a retransmitted packet of 1. Receiver gets 2 packets, identical packets. Okay. Let me repeat this for you to understand. There are 2 packets. The first packet is sent, because I is congested, will send it on the other route and it will take a lot of time. Packet 2, which is basically a retransmitted packet, by the time it reaches I, the congestion is cleared and you can travel on a shorter, faster path, will reach before the other one. See this. See, packet 2 is reached before packet 1. Okay. The problem is, in this case, for example, I send 3 packets: connection establishment, transfer money 20,000 to somebody's account, and connection close. Okay. Now, those 3 packets are sent on this long line. My sender reads, sends all of them. 20,000 is deposited, connection is closed. Again, there is a request for connection establishment, transfer of money, and connection closed. How do I know, the receiver, that 2 different this thing are actually duplicate or genuine? It is quite possible that I transfer 20,000 and then do it again, because I realize that I will have to do it twice. He needs 40,000 and not 20. It may be a genuine case, may not be. How to differentiate? So, this delayed duplicate can be a serious problem, okay, and we will have to handle it. How TCP does that? What is the solution? Very simple solution. Give every segment a unique number, okay, and every segment's lifetime is also fixed. So, during that period, if you receive the same segment with same number, you understand it to be duplicate and drop it. So, that is the simple case. Sequence number, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is sent at this point of time. Okay. So, this is 1 minute. Okay. So, at this point of time, that life is 1 minute. So, it's 30 minutes is sent, and 31 minute, if ever that segment is roaming around anywhere, it is dead. Okay. So, if you, but then by the time if you receive that segment in 1 minute, if you receive that segment again, you realize that it is a duplicate and you drop it. Okay. And you see, TCP uses a 32-bit sequence number for every segment it sends, and internet lifetime is 2 minutes by default, but the administrators can change if they wish to. Okay. But then what happens if the machine goes down? Okay. As you know, TCP, as I said, suppose if I am sending a packet with say sequence number 15, and I know that I can't send TCP with segment number 15 if 1 minute is lifetime. I know that. So, I have 100 connections. On every connection I know the sequence numbers that I have sent, and I know the number of sequence numbers that I cannot send on those connections. As long as TCP is on, there is no problem. TCP can keep track of those obsolete sequence numbers for that period. What if the machine goes down and come up again and start working? The user will start applications which are running, applications start TCP to send those packets one after the other, and TCP may unknowingly use the same sequence number, because it has lost all that memory, will resend those new packets probably with the same sequence number, and you will have 2 different packets with the same sequence number roaming around in the internet. So, that is again a problem. So, how to handle that? Tomlinson is a scientist who provided a solution to this in a very simple fashion. Every computer has a real time clock attached to it. So, what he said or he proposed that you just pick up that real time clock, the rightmost few digits, and use that thing as a starting sequence number, and a clock runs much faster than the TCP itself. So, every time you pick up those initial sequence number is usually much beyond what TCP could send. So, if TCP for example has started with number called 12, okay, TCP has started with 12 and it is sending it say 1 MB per sec. So, after 1 second it is 12 plus 1 MB is the number, okay, because every byte is, you know, the number is incremented. Okay. But if the clock runs very fast and after 1 second the clock moves 15 MB, if a new connection is opened, that new connection will get 15 MB plus 12 as the initial sequence number. Even if machine goes down and come up, this number will be more than what TCP could have sent. It will never be in the same range. Okay, so that is the first thing. Second thing, obviously clock is clock, it has some known digits and wraps around after a while. So, that wrapping around will catch up with the number. So, wrapping around should come much later. So, usually that wrapping around time must be much bigger than the connection lifetime. So, that will not happen in a life of a connection. So, these are the two critical requirements for clocks, otherwise it is just fine. So, here are those points. Okay. TCP has to pick up the initial sequence number for every connection. For rightmost 32 bits, for example, TCP contains that 32 bit sequence number. So, 32 rightmost 32 bits of the clock. Why rightmost? Because they change the fastest part, okay, that is the fastest changing part of the clock. And two requirements of a clock: faster than TCP's maximum speed to send the segments and larger wrap around time than the connection time itself. Okay. And this is something we have already looked at while we talked about protocols, but let us summarize. The initial sequence number is 200, and now you can understand why the initial sequence number is 200, because the clock's time at that point of time was 200. So, the initial sequence number is 200. Okay. After sending 100, the sequence number becomes 300. Why? Because original sequence number was 200, is a send 100 more number of bytes, sequence number will rise to 300. Again I am sending 150 bytes in the next segment, older sequence number was 300, additional 150, so the sequence number is 450. Now I am sending 200 more bytes. What will be the sequence number? The sequence number for the next segment 450 plus 200, okay, 650. So, if I am sending, if the sender is sending any segment at this point of time, the sequence number of that segment will be 650. Okay. Connection establishment process is also plagued by this delayed duplicate. Okay. It is quite possible that the sender has sent a request before it reaches to the receiver later, and receiver understands this to be a fresh request and establish connection from its side. Okay. But where there is no request actually which from this thing, the sender. Okay. Not only that, it is quite possible that there is a duplicate acknowledgement also. So, sender would be fooled in believing that the connection is already on, which is actually sender is not aware of it. Okay. So, we need some solution for this problem. Before we embark on solution, let us try to understand why that problem has occurred. For example, sender sends with sequence number 20, okay. So, it sends, but it is delayed. So, it is actually delayed much later, and timer connection request, remember that connection establishment timer is also there. So, it times out at this point of time, and receiver sends retransmit the connection request, okay, again with sequence number 20. And remember, every time the acknowledgement comes with sequence number 1 plus the request, the acknowledgement 21 arrives. So, the sender understands that the connection is established. Now, unfortunately, receiver after accepting this request will be in receipt of these older delayed duplicate. Receiver has no way of knowing that this is a duplicate in this case. So, we will assume that sender wants to have one more connection, and you may be surprised, but this is very common. For example, if you work on telnet and you run a program there, you usually have two telnet connections, one with a compiler and other one with maybe the editor. So, in editor you change the program, on compiler you just run that program. Okay. So, you have both the outputs with you. So, that is very common. This is one example, there are many other examples can be cited. So, many a time sender wants multiple connections with the receiver. So, it is not uncommon to have. So, receiver will accept that and respond back. But then sender realize, oh, I have already received the acknowledgement, I have sent only one request, I have received one receipt. The other one I do not need to worry about, I will just throw it into RESTMate. In this case, receiver assumes to have one connection with the receiver, while receiver assumes to have two connections with the sender. Now, that is a problem. On the other hand, after a while, after this all this has happened, a duplicate connection request with sequence number 20 reaches receiver, and receiver is fooled into believing that this is a fresh request, responds back and hope for some traffic from the sender. The sender is not at all aware of it. That is the issue. Okay. In this case, sender has one connection while receiver has two connections. In this case, receiver has one connection, sender has none. Now, this is the problem. Now, you can see that this problem is not very easy to solve if you use this method. Tomlinson provided a very simple solution using three-way handshake, use not only two-way handshake, but three-way handshake. How that is done? Okay. Now, here are some of the ingredients of the solution. First thing, we will have to identify duplicates, and that is done by providing specific IDs. Now, specific IDs basically are initial sequence numbers. So, those initial sequence numbers are used as IDs. Okay. So, that is the first thing. So, and you identify duplicates by using at the sequence number. So, if same sequence the segment is same sequence number arrives, you understand it to be a duplicate. Okay. And that ID is the initial sequence number. Obviously, limiting a segment's lifetime is also very critical. Not only data segments, but this connection request segments are also having fixed lifetime. They cannot roam around in a network forever. Okay. So, these are the three things, and once you have this, you can have a three-way handshake having a foolproof solution to this problem. Okay. What does it, how does it work? Sender sends connection request with unique sequence number, the initial sequence number. Receiver responds back with own unique sequence number. Sender sequence number may be very different than receivers, because both of them chooses their sequence number based on their own clocks, and that is the reason why they will have very different numbers. Okay. Okay. And once this is done, the sender responds back with his own connection request with its own sequence number, and also the acknowledgement to the sender's query, a sender's connection request. And finally, sender sends back the final acknowledgement. Okay. Here is one example which talks about how this thing is used. Receiver TCP has established 5 connections from a typical sender with their initial sequence numbers as this. Okay. Within 2 minutes, assuming that it is lifetime for this particular case, it gets a request from the same sender with sequence number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is already there. So, what does it do? Is the second case that we have seen. Receiver receives one more request, the first case, sorry. The connection is already established and on, and you receive one more request, has to be a duplicate. Okay. Because you know, you stored this information, you know that is a duplicate, so you drop it. Okay. Every sender keeps track of sequence numbers used and will not use the same sequence number subsequently for the time duration. TCP does not have connection ID in the the segment structure. We are not going to look at segment structure in this module or this course rather. You can again refer to the reference to which contains that segment structure. It does not have any field for the segment ID, but we do not really need. The initial sequence number itself can serve as the connection ID, which we will be using, and this is a normal TCP connection process. Connection request with sequence number 45. Now, this is 45 is the number which sender chooses for its own connection. Subsequent segments on this connection will be 45 and so on, 45, 46, 47, whatever. Similarly, receiver responds back with ACK 46. Remember, it is this sequence number plus 1. Okay. ACK is always so. Okay. What does that mean? I am expecting 46 byte. Not only that, it says that my own sequence number is 99. Okay. What does the sender do? Sender says acknowledgement of 100, that means I am accepting this request. Now, here this is going to solve all our problems. How? For example, I receive a duplicate this thing, duplicate connection request with sequence 45. Obviously, receiver will send acknowledgement 46 with sequence 99, but will not establish connection until the acknowledgement comes back. Now, when it reaches sender realizes I have not sent any request, and this response does not make a sense. So, it will respond back with something called not acceptable, and the receiver will not establish connection. In the earlier case it was, in this case because of the third handshake it can omit this, okay, omit the possibility of establishing connection unnecessarily in this case. Okay. The other case, duplicate connection request, both of them, this request has come. Okay. So, this thing he sends ACK 46 with sequence number 149. Now, ACK 46, this has already been sent. Now, duplicate ACK, okay, this guy has already sent. So, this how do it get this? Because it is already sent before. So, this probably is ACK 100 with some sequence number, because you are sending, this is 99 assuming. So, some sequence number 100. Okay. But here the receiver, because he has sent ACK 46 with sequence number, now this sequence number is very important. When you say 149, you expect it to be 149. So, basically the ACK should be 150, but is some other sequence number. So, you get some other sequence number here, maybe 99. Okay. So, that 99 is not equal to 149, it cannot be 149, because you already sent one with 149, you will not send that thing during that lifetime. So, you will not be sending it yourself, and if it is appearing, it is not going to, the delayed duplicate will not be 149 something else. So, it is 99. So, in 99 is won't match. So, I have sent request of 149, it should get the acknowledgement of 149, I will get something else, understand it is not right. So, I will say nothing doing, not acceptable. Okay. With that we conclude this module on TCP timers and delayed duplicate and acknowledgement. What we have done, we have looked at multiple types of timers TCP use for communicating with the receiver. We looked at persist timer. A persist timer is the timer which is used when there is a 0 window advertisement. Whenever a receiver finds no space for sender to send, will send back a 0 window advertisement. The sender will wait. Now, the problem might occur if the receiver sends non-zero window advertisement which is lost. When that is lost, the sender needs to resend that. Okay. Okay. Sender needs to restart sending, but the problem is if that is lost, sender will not be aware of non-zero window advertisement. So, we will have to send that probe after a while. For that we run a timer called persist timer. There is one more timer called keep alive timer. That keep alive timer is very critical when server is talking to multiple clients, and now some of the clients might stop working without informing. So, server continues to probe them, finding out if they are alive, they are not alive, they will just stop that connection. And you may not have realized, but how critical this is for large servers, especially servers which are called stateful. These stateful servers are servers which keep track of what client is doing and have reserved some memory for those clients, and their capacity to handle client is always limited, because you will have to spare some memory and some processing power for every sender. And this is very important for us to know that some of the servers, for example, FTP server, if I am downloading a file, okay, so the server must know what is the last chunk that I have downloaded, and when I am doing it again, from where it should start. Not only that, suppose if I say CD, okay, or moving up directory or moving down directory, server should know exactly in which directory I was. So, it will be able to help me out moving from one directory to the other. Will remember the directory where I am, the amount of files that I have sent and received, and so on and so forth. Will have to remember a few things about me. It stores that information about me. That is the reason why FTP server cannot handle lot of clients. On the other hand, if you pick up the HTTP case, HTTP server is stateless. It will not remember anything about your client, anything about the client. So, if you send a request, you will get a response, and when you send a request, you get a response. If you send a request again, you will have to tell who you are again. The server does not remember anything about you. The advantage of that is server, because server is not remembering about you, will not need to store anything about you and won't need to like bookkeep anything for you. So, HTTP servers can handle large number of customers, but then HTTP is a different application than FTP. FTP demands statefulness, and the other one is SMTP, you know, simple mail transfer protocol. That server is again an example where there is a lot of statefulness is. So, in these cases, when the client has just gone missing or just closed down without informing, it hurts server, because they keep that memory aside and some processing cycles are wasted on making sure this happens. So, they must know whether the client is not on and should be able to dismantle this thing, remove that thing from the memory. So, those timers are very critical. Okay, this time, and the last two timers are also very important, the time wait timer and FinWait 2 timers. This typically, and we have looked at those delayed duplicates later. So, you probably would understand the purpose of these two timers now. Time wait 2 timer, remember the disconnection request is sent and the response is received. Now, we are waiting for the receiver to send his own disconnection request, and when we do not get it because of some problem, we will have to close down. So, this timer is used. Time wait timer is exclusively designed for this delayed duplicates. Even when the connection is over, it is quite possible, we have seen an example where the packets travel a longer distance and reach the receiver after a while. When that happens, it is quite possible that the sender has closed down. Okay. We have looked at that example of I am transferring some money into somebody else's account. So, connection start, transferring 20,000, connection close. Okay. So, that happened and the receiver has received. Now, after that the delayed duplicate reaches there and says the same thing, connection establishment, transfer 20,000 and close. But then this this timer is running, time wait timer is running. We will look at this thing connection, oh, this is the connection which is already completed now, and sequence number which I have already seen, throw them to dustbin. Okay. Will not accept them as genuine connection requests and drop them. Will save us from the trouble which I was talking about, will never happen with internet actually. Okay, friends, this delayed duplicates which we have seen next is again very important thing. We have seen that delayed duplicates arrive at the receiver at much later period. Our time wait timer that we had a very important function. What happens when you receive the duplicate packets? The time wait timer will tell you that these packets are duplicate, they are not a fresh request for connection, because they bear the same sequence number, they bear the same connection this thing, the sequence numbers. So, they are basically the same packets. So, drop them, they are not the same, they are the same segments which you already received. So, that is the power of time with timer, and that is the usefulness of this managing this delayed duplicates. You will not get this problem repeated at transport layer, the problem which I talked about earlier, that salary is deposited twice or something like that, okay, or money deposited twice. That will not happen in TCP, because TCP manages this delayed duplicate. This delayed duplicate is a very typical transport layer problem, it will not occur at other layers. The reason is that two transport layer entities, they are not directly connected, they have an entire subnet in between, the entire network in between. A critical ability of this thing, a subnet, is to absorb the data and deliver after a while, okay, store that thing and deliver after a while. So, that is the critical problem here, and that is the reason why we have this delayed duplicate problems, and that is the reason why TCP has to manage all this using multiple timers and handling this delayed duplicate problems. Okay. We will see in the next module how other services of TCP are also managed. Okay. With that note, I would like to conclude. Thank you all, friends.